Now, the Republican candidates for Pennsylvania's Senate took the stage for a NewsNation station debate. It was the first time the top five candidates squared off. They did not hold back trying to get the front runners, former hedge fund CEO David McCormick and TV personality Dr. Mehmet Oz, in the hot seat. Here are some highlights from last night's debate.
Dishonest Dave is at it again. He went groveling to President Trump with, again, these types of allegations. President Trump saw right through him, did not endorse him, and then he endorsed me.
I've done business around the world in 20 countries, including 2% of our business in China. And it's just disingenuous for Mehmet to say that when Mehmet has so many dollars coming in his pocket from China, which we can talk about, that it's sort of mind-boggling. Mehmet has flip-flopped on every major issue.
The two out-of-staters, the two tourists who've moved here to run, they don't know Main Street, Pennsylvania. They haven't cared to spend time there until they decided to run for office.
I don't make many promises on the campaign trail, but I can promise the people of Pennsylvania that when these carpetbaggers lose, you will never see them again.
Well, our D.C. insider, NewsNation and Washington bureau chief Mike Viqueira joins us now. Vic, quite the debate last night with the candidates. Tell us, what were some of the key highlights? Because, of course, Pennsylvania is a battleground state ahead of the midterms.
Oh, absolutely. And what a throwdown that was. Obviously, there are two clear frontrunners there. You heard David McCormick, the hedge fund manager, and Dr. Mehmet Oz, of course, the cardiologist famed for his TV show, endorsed by President Trump, who will be in the Commonwealth on May 6th to campaign with Oz. But, you know, they really went after each other, trying to defend themselves against attacks from each other, of course, them being the frontrunners. But also from the other candidates on the stage who realized they had a lot of ground to make up. I think that the sensitive point there, obviously the point of vulnerability for both of these candidates in the front, David McCormick and Mehmet Oz, is the fact that they have spent all their lives, or principally the last several years of their lives, out of the state of Pennsylvania. And I think it was fairly obvious the strategy on the part of McCormick, constantly referring to Dr. Oz as Mehmet, his first name, of course, accentuating his Turkish lineage, and not playing to the fact that he is Dr. Oz of television fame, something that accrues in his favor. But listen, if there's anything that's clear after that debate last night and some of the other debates that we've seen just recently, it's that the 2020 election is still being litigated on the Republican side, and it is sort of the MAGA catechism, if you will, that you have to say, as most of these candidates said last night in Pennsylvania, that the election, there were still problems with the election that need to be investigated. Remember, Pennsylvania, Nichole, was one of the last states to be called in the presidential election of 2020. There was a lot of nail-biting, a lot of tension around those outer suburbs of Philadelphia, the mail-in ballots, the laws governing when they could be counted. So obviously still raw, the feelings from 2020 carrying over into this debate as all of these candidates vied for the Trump imprint, if you will.
Right.
But Dr. Oz is the only one who has that endorsement right now.
Well, you know, Vic, speaking of that, MAGA and Donald Trump, Dr. Oz mentioned Donald Trump multiple times last night, the power of his endorsement. Is this a good tactic? I mean, do voters care?
I think in the Republican primary, they certainly do. And I think, like any other, the classical way to run these campaigns is when you're in the primary, you throw red meat to the base, and then you try to shift to the center in the general election when you face a Democrat or the other major party candidate. Whether that still works or not remains to be seen, because is there any coming back to the middle ground in a polarized electorate like we see in Pennsylvania and around the country, and sort of the symbol of polarization that President Trump represents to so many people? And the downside of invoking President Trump when he is the one thing that motivates Democrats to come to the polls to vote against him in a year when enthusiasm is so low now for Democrats across the country, Nichole.
Well, Vic, we've been talking about battleground Pennsylvania. Let's switch to battleground Georgia, also a battleground for the midterms, where Senator David Perdue squaring off with Governor Brian Kemp in the governor's race, both Republicans there. Who has more backing, particularly from their own party?
These are mirror images of each other, really. Actually, maybe not mirror images, but certainly two sides of the same coin. Pennsylvania and Georgia, both contested states in the 2020 election, both very late to be called. And obviously, Georgia had a lot going on and ultimately threw the Senate to Democratic control when those runoffs took place. So a political hotbed. Again, a debate last night between the sitting Governor Brian Kemp and David Perdue, the former senator who lost his Senate seat last time around. It appears now, and this is a surprise to me, Nichole, a poll today by the Atlanta Journal and Constitution has Kemp. Remember, he's the one who has been a target of President Trump because in President Trump's view, he didn't do enough to investigate the balloting in Georgia. Kemp wiping the floor with David Perdue at this point, 53-27. According to that poll, and really setting up a really interesting dynamic for the fall and the general election, because the presumptive Democratic nominee, none other than Stacey Abrams, narrowly lost to Kemp in 2018. Since then, has burnished her credentials near icon status among a lot of Democrats in Georgia and even nationwide, and played a big role in those getting those Senate races to swing to Democrats in those runoffs at the end of the 2020 election cycle, Nichole.
Yeah, certainly another election to watch there. All right, Vic, thank you for that. Okay. We want to turn our attention now to the Democrats. It's been 2 years since they took back the White House and House of Representatives, and we are still more than 2 years from the next presidential election. But there are some early rumors the Democrats could be rethinking their strategy, possibly even considering replacing the current president, President Biden, on the ballot in 2024. So with the president's approval rating right now hovering below 40%, all indications pointing toward Republicans reclaiming the House and Senate during these midterms. So is it time for the Democrats to abandon the platform behind the 2020 blue wave? Hannah Trudeau from our partners at The Hill joining us now. Thank you so much, Hannah. Now, we know The Hill's reporting President Biden is planning to run again, but some other prominent Democrats attracting some presidential speculation. So what are the chances we will not see another Biden run?
That's right, Nichole. Now, President Biden has certainly indicated on numerous occasions that he intends to run for office again. He has said, when asked directly if he plans to seek a second term, he has said yes. Those around him in his inner circle are emphatic that he certainly wants to be president for a second term. But that hasn't stopped, like you mentioned, some Democrats, particularly in progressive circles, for attracting speculation that they might try and at least plant the early seeds of challenging the incumbent president. Now, I say challenging when I should say probably all of this hinges on if President Biden decides not to seek a second term. So there's a little bit of early speculation that he might face a progressive primary challenger if he does run again. But the bulk of these conversations have been around if he declines to again run in 2024. And that sort of has been bubbling under the surface for the past several months as his approval rating has dipped into the low 40s in most national polls. But it really came into a head over the past week or so when two of the top progressives in the Senate, namely Senators Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, both did a series of moves that indicated that they certainly want to keep their name in the national spotlight and push President Biden on some of their top priorities. Elizabeth Warren notably penned a very harsh, scathing op-ed in the New York Times saying that Democrats are in real fear of losing the House and Senate if they don't enact more of their policies that Biden ran on in 2020. And Senator Sanders basically signed off, according to several reports from Politico and from the Washington Post, on a memo stating that he hasn't closed the door to a potential primary run in 2024. That is, again, if Biden declines to seek a second term. And that was written by his former campaign manager, Faz Shakir. So there's all of these sort of slow movements bubbling under the surface. Nothing concrete yet, but it's certainly got some Democrats talking about whether there's an appetite for that.
Absolutely, yeah. People certainly starting to pay attention. All right, Hannah Trudeau from our partners at The Hill, thank you so much. And we will be right back. Thank you for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.